We rolling? We rolling? Why you say nothing? Alright, bet. What up, YouTube? This is LG. This is Light God TV. Sorry, y'all caught me in the middle of feasting. I'm sure y'all doing the same. So you know what? Happy Thanksgiving if you believe in that. If you don't, happy holy days. Now roll that beautiful bean footage. What up? What up, YouTube? This is LG. This is Light God TV. And thank you for tuning in with me. And you already know what it is. Happy holy days to you. I got you a banger video like I do. And you know how I do? I search the web for you. But right now, you know the mantra before we get started. If you woke up today, let me know. Let's start there. Did you brush your teeth? It's a little tart. Let's start there. And if you got up on your feet, if you were able, thank God. Let's get in motion. Let's start there. Now, I'm not going to hold you, so go get your drink, your good, your eats, your plate. Hurry up. Don't be late. Give you the count of 8, baby. Let's start this video so I can be great. Let's get to it. Let's see what the Pilgrims and the Indians was doing back in the day. The story they say we don't know.
We all know the famous story of Thanksgiving, the picture-perfect meal shared by Native Americans and Pilgrims as a symbol of gratitude, cooperation, and peace. The true story behind the feast is much more complex. Among other things, the first Thanksgiving was a temporary celebration in the midst of struggle and cultural misunderstandings. Keep watching to learn more about the Pilgrims, the Native Americans, and the captivating true story of the first Thanksgiving. Who attended the first Thanksgiving? To fully understand the significance of the first Thanksgiving, we must also understand the people who attended it. The Pilgrims, who were struggling to survive in a new world, and the Wampanoag people, who had lived on the land for centuries and were grappling with a changing world as more and more European settlers arrived.
Now, who's the Wampanoag people? Do y'all know who they are? Y'all ever heard of the Wampanoags? Is that like some first age Indian people or something? I'm just saying, I don't know. I never heard of Wampanoags.
We'll begin with the Pilgrims. The early 1600s were a time of exploration, hardship, and survival for the Pilgrims, a group of settlers who had left England to start anew after growing tired of religious persecution in their homeland. After a grueling journey across the Atlantic on the Mayflower, they landed near what we know today as Plymouth, Massachusetts. The journey was brutal. The Mayflower set sail in September 1620.
Is that the famous line right there? We didn't land on Plymouth Rock landed on us. Words of Malcolm if you don't know.
With over 100 passengers crammed into a single deck below the main deck. During the 2-month journey, they faced cramped quarters, poor sanitation, and constant seasickness. To make matters worse, they arrived in America as winter was beginning. Many were already weak from the journey, and the cold made survival even more of a challenge. The Pilgrims' first winter in New England was much harsher than expected. Without enough food and shelter to prepare for the winter, they endured freezing temperatures, illnesses, and malnutrition. By spring, nearly half of the settlers had perished from exposure, unprotection from severe weather, or disease. Every day was a struggle for the newly arrived Pilgrims as their survival hung in the balance.
Hey guys, welcome to my new video, and
The Pilgrims were not alone. They settled in the territory of the Wampanoag tribe. Despite the Pilgrims' need for help, early interactions between the Pilgrims and the indigenous people were marred by mistrust. The two groups had vastly different cultures, languages, and beliefs. Both sides knew that a misstep might lead to conflict, which neither people could afford. The Wampanoag people had lived in the area for centuries, cultivating the land, fishing, hunting, and gathering. Their leader, Massasoit, was well aware of the encroachment of European settlers and the danger it posed to his people. Along with the threat they posed, Massasoit also recognized the opportunity the newcomers represented. The Wampanoag people had suffered from devastating diseases brought by earlier European explorers, and their population was severely reduced. He believed an alliance with the Pilgrims could help strengthen their defenses against rival tribes.
Alright, so the first reign of disease they went through or whatever, was that brought on through Christopher Columbus and them? And then they had left back, made everybody sick and everything. Then these new pilgrims came through and met the Wampanoag tribe. And then they created Thanksgiving. Is that where they going with this? Because I'm like, if somebody come to your place the first time and bring all this sickness and disease, and y'all trusted them to come through again,
this is where a man named Squanto came in. Squanto was a Patuxet tribesman with a unique perspective on the new European arrivals. Years before, Squanto was captured by English traders and sold into slavery in Spain. He managed to escape to England, where he learned English, before eventually returning to his homeland. Tragically, he found his entire Patuxet tribe wiped out by disease when he returned. Squanto became an interpreter and a mediator, bridging the gap between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag. His knowledge of English...
hell nah. So you tell me that they use Squanto to like get in and infiltrate the Wampanoag tribe through Squanto? So you tell me all this is Squanto's fault because Squanto was trusting people, or was Squanto a traitor? You see what I'm saying? Where we going with this?
Of English and first-hand experience with both cultures made him an invaluable ally to both sides. He taught the Pilgrims essential survival skills, such as planting corn, using fish as fertilizer, catching fish and eel, and safely foraging for edible and medicinal plants. This shared knowledge transformed the Pilgrims' chances for survival, allowing them to finally cultivate their own food. As the relationship between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag people strengthened, Massasoit and the Pilgrim leaders agreed on a mutual protection treaty. This pact was intended to safeguard both parties from potential threats and establish peace and cooperation. The alliance was delicate, built on a mixture of trust.
Who was both sides worried about? You see what I'm saying? They made a treaty that protected both sides, but from what? Each other or something else?
Trust, caution, and mutual need. The first Thanksgiving feast. By the autumn of 1621, the Pilgrims had managed their first successful harvest with the help of Squanto and the Wampanoag people. This was a monumental achievement for them, drastically increasing their hope for survival after nearly a year of unimaginable hardship and loss. The Pilgrims wanted to celebrate this harvest and express their gratitude for the help they'd received from their Native American allies. So they invited Massasoit, the Wampanoag leader, and his men to join them in a shared meal. This gathering would be what we now know as the First Thanksgiving, and it was meant to strengthen the blooming hope and friendship between the two groups of people. The exact date of the feast is unknown, but most historians place it in late September or early October. Unlike how we typically imagine it, this was not a single meal, but a festival, likely lasting about 3 days.
If it was celebrated in September or October, why we celebrate in November? Does that make any sense? At the end of November. Where are we going with this?
It was a time for feasting, entertainment, and diplomacy. But it wasn't just a celebration. It was an opportunity for both groups to honor their alliance, share their respective traditions, and show mutual respect to each other. They came from wildly different backgrounds, but the first Thanksgiving offered them a chance to connect. Who was there, and what did they eat? By the time the first Thanksgiving took place, about 50 pilgrims were left, a small fraction of the number who had arrived on the Mayflower. On the other hand, Massasoit arrived with around 90 Wampanoag men, a much larger group than the pilgrims had anticipated. Seeing their native neighbors in such large numbers might have intimidated the pilgrims, but they welcomed them anyway. Based on those numbers, the gathering would have been approximately 140 people, making it the largest social event the pilgrims had experienced since their arrival.
Dang. Hey, but how come they didn't bring the
Majority of
females
the
with them? I
chat
wonder
GPT,
though.
and while
Like, I
that's
wonder why
awesome,
they just brought the dudes. Hold on, hurry up, man.
there is one little problem. You're not making any.
I wonder why they didn't bring the females. Or did I miss that part? I don't know.
The food at this feast would have been very different from what Americans now associate with Thanksgiving. While today's Thanksgiving meals typically include turkey, cranberry sauce, and pumpkin pie, the fare in 1621 consisted only of what the Pilgrims...
Did that man say pumpkin pie? Hold on, bro. I know you meant sweet potato. Let me make sure you didn't say that wrong. Let me make sure you didn't say that wrong. Hold on.
While today's Thanksgiving meals typically include turkey, cranberry sauce, and pumpkin pie, the fare in 1621 consisted only of what the Pilgrims and Wampanoag could hunt, gather, and grow with their own hands. The feast most likely consisted of a wide variety of native food. The Wampanoag brought 5 deer. For the Wampanoag, bringing food to a communal feast was customary, and venison was an essential part of their diet. Since they lived so close to the coast, the Pilgrims had easy access to shellfish and other seafood.
Okay.
Mussels, lobster, clams, and even eel may have been part of the feast.
Like a little seafood
Other
broil.
groups may have provided fowl, like ducks, geese, or wild turkeys. Wild turkeys were native to the region and plentiful, but no historical record confirms that this classic Thanksgiving dish was on the menu. Both peoples might have also harvested vegetables like corn, squash, and beans, as well as nuts and berries that were native to the forests of New England. Chestnuts, walnuts, and beech nuts were likely on the table for that first feast. Although cranberries would have been available, cranberry sauce probably wasn't part of the feast because the Pilgrims didn't have the luxury of sugar. What did the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag people do at the feast?
They wouldn't eat no sugar?
While we often envision a large meal when we think of the first Thanksgiving, the feast was not just about eating. Historical accounts suggest that the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag put on various forms of entertainment throughout the event. The Pilgrims used the occasion to show off their military skills through firing drills and musket handling. This was likely a show of strength, demonstrating to the Wampanoag that they could defend themselves if needed. For the Wampanoag, gatherings like this typically involve storytelling, games, and athletic contests. It's possible that the Wampanoag entertained the Pilgrims with foot races, wrestling matches, or other forms of physical competition. These
They have to
activities
compete.
fostered camaraderie and mutual respect, allowing the two groups to see each other.
And that's kind of cool right there, because that's like, remind me like when we were younger and shit, you get with all your family, your little cousins and everything, you're out there competing on the court, playing football, tag, whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's out there getting to it. I miss them days. Things really didn't change, y'all. For real, family ain't close no more.
Each other as people rather than just convenient allies. The dark side of the first Thanksgiving. While there was much to be thankful for, and the feast was a time of celebration, it also highlighted the cultural gap between the Pilgrims and the Native Americans. For the Pilgrims, this feast was an expression of gratitude to their God for providing a successful harvest, and to the Wampanoag for their support. For the Wampanoag, sharing food was an important part of their culture, a way of honoring relationships. For Massasoit, participating in the feast was a strategic move and a gesture of goodwill. His people had endured massive suffering from diseases introduced by earlier European explorers, and their population had dwindled. Massasoit's role in the Pilgrims' success was primarily motivated by his desire to secure his people's future in a rapidly changing world. Although the feast is often remembered as a moment of harmony, viewing it within its broader historical context provides valuable insight. The peaceful alliance between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag was short-lived, compared to the centuries of conflict and displacement that followed for native tribes as more Europeans arrived.
Damn.
The first Thanksgiving was a rare moment of unity that would not last, and it was soon to be overshadowed by the colonization and conflicts that followed.
Oh, that's crazy. You see where they headed with this now? So when they first came in, it was all like very nice gestures and everybody trying to take care of one another and respecting each other's cultures and differences like they were saying. But it was an infiltration, because once the Pilgrims, or whatever you want to call them, where this story going anyway, once they infiltrated them, it got cracking. You hear that? They went to war. People started dying like crazy in masses, y'all. What is going on here? But was this a setup though the whole time? I'm your friend now, I'm not. I'm your enemy.
For those few days, though, the groups found common ground. They shared food, companionship, and maybe a sense of relief knowing that they were stronger together, if only temporarily. While the first Thanksgiving isn't the purely joyful occasion we often think of, it was a symbol of hope and a rare moment of peace in an otherwise conflict-riddled history. The aftermath and legacy of the first Thanksgiving.
Hurry up.
Alright guys, I just wanted to go over some best practices today. Oh god. Make it stop. No, why are they everywhere? Oh.
The peace between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag did not last forever. As more European settlers arrived, tensions grew. The original alliance between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag people began to break down under immense pressure from things like land disputes and competition for resources. The settlers' relationship with the indigenous people shifted as the colony expanded. The Pilgrims' descendants and later settlers saw the land as theirs to cultivate and populate, often disrespecting the Wampanoag people and other tribes. This led to a series of conflicts, culminating in King Philip's War, a devastating conflict between the Native American tribes and the New England colonists that lasted from 1675 to 1678. It was one of the bloodiest conflicts in American history, claiming thousands of lives on both sides and leaving a permanent scar on the relationship between the indigenous people and the European settlers. The Wampanoag and their allies faced displacement, death, and a complete upheaval of their way of life. This war casts a shadow on the first Thanksgiving. In light of the suffering that was to come, the feast seems far less significant. Despite the complex and sometimes dark history surrounding Thanksgiving, it is still celebrated as a national holiday in the United States.
Make sure y'all subscribe over here, Like God TV. Don't forget, LG, Like God TV, subscribe now.
As it is of historical fact. In the 1800s, figures like Sarah Josepha Hale promoted Thanksgiving as a unifying event, idealizing it as a time for Americans to come together. President Abraham Lincoln later established it as an official holiday during the Civil War, re-emphasizing the theme of gratitude and national unity. In contrast to the story painted in the years since the first Thanksgiving feast, the real story of Thanksgiving is a brief moment of unity between two vastly different societies, overshadowed by the broader, painful context of colonization. While the gratitude, resilience, and cultural significance of the feast are worth celebrating, it is not simply the joyous occasion that our modern-day holiday makes it seem.
Man, that was an interesting story right there. I'm sure it left out a whole lot of details because I'm sure this story gets a whole lot darker. But we'll keep searching until we get to the truth, okay? Y'all keep tuning in with me. I'm LG. This is Like God TV. You all be safe. Stay loving. Stay blessed. Less stress. And let God take care of the rest. Peace.